Okay, we're up. Let's get to work. Add some packages. Okay, so it knows me how it puts these dependencies here. In Vim mode. What else? XCS. Oh, that's not it. We don't want that. Let's also put this here. What else do I need here? I always forget. Don't think I need. Oh, let's use this for now. Stuff from the library. Is it not a type? It might be a bit nicer if I don't have the music on my headset. You don't have to listen to awkward silences by me. Where are we? Okay, what's next? So I prefer to use all lowercase dash separated file names for a couple of reasons. One, if it's all lowercase, you never get confused if something should be uppercase or lowercase. Two, dash separated rather than underscore separated, because if it's all lowercase, you're not using the shift key, and the dash is not using a shift key. If it was all uppercase, then I would use underscore, because that is, well, then it would be consistent, right? So that is why I don't do that. Okay, app. lowercase. Get rid of this stuff. Okay, make this function-based component. Now let's do height 1. Okay, need to bring in my prettier. So I don't use semicolons because in JavaScript they mean nothing except for a minified version. So it's just extra stuff you're typing that you don't actually need and doesn't actually serve any purpose. So I remove semicolons. Let me copy in my TS-lint and my prettier RC. Now what you'll see is a prettier will automatically format on save and remove the bits I don't want. Okay, what else is there? So in index, I have this service worker. So we do want the service worker because just makes the user experience slightly better. So that's why we'll use it. App from app is now no longer default export. So you register now here, and that will make the service worker register with Chrome. What else we got? So this is now inside utils. Here we go. Why doesn't it look like app? App. I might just need to restart this. Export app. Okay. When you're setting everything up and you have so many files being created and removed and everything, sometimes you just need to restart it. But that's it. File name differs from already included file name. Yeah, see, it doesn't really seem to. Not sure why it's doing that. Anyways, it's probably just VS Code being a bit finicky at times. Okay, let's get the other folders. So components. So this is where we put like the primary components that are typically single use. And then common, we put things that we're going to use across our application. And then last is models, and that's where we're going to put the rematch store. Okay, so just throw all that kind of boilerplate code into place. It annoys me when things like that restart. Reload. I don't deal well with things being underlined. It makes me think there's something wrong. So you see, it just needed it to be restarted because I was creating stuff and destroying it so quickly. Let me remove Vim mode as well. Toggle Vim mode. Okay. So now this is now working as expected. I can see that it's loading properly. So this is kind of, hello world done, basically. Now what we're going to put into our React kind of app element is nothing about actual display itself, just more like meta information about how something's going to be laid out. So if you have routes in your application, you would typically put them here or import them here. Where do we need routes? We might. So right now I'm not going to include it, but in the future we may come back and add them in here. Okay, so let's wire up to something to display with Material UI, and then we'll then add in the store after. So first thing we're going to do is create a div to put our app in, and inside here I'm just going to create something called home. Okay, and that's going to be our home. Yeah, it can be in components / home. Now components, new file, home.tsx. Okay, import React from React, const home, React.functional component, my props. should work. There we go. Home is now rendering as you expect it to. And you can do things like to make sure this is being updated properly. I'll typically do things like math.random in here. Oh, that's the wrong key. And that way, every time I refresh, I know that it's actually doing what I want it to do. Let's also add in our module hot stuff. I never remember what we actually have to say in here, so I'll just copy that code from dev learn react ruby. Okay, module hot, right? It's going to complain because it's I haven't imported the type yet, so I'm going to go yarn add. You always want to add types. So the D means to add it is a dev dependency. So when you build for production, it's not going to include any of those dependencies. They're just to make your development life easier, which is why you want to put them in dev. All the types, all the TypeScript stuff, anything to do with building. Okay, that should now resolve that. Good. Index doesn't like something. What don't you like, index? Could not find file app does not match corresponding name on disk. Oh, sorry. Let's just stop this and start again. Probably a better way to do it is just put everything in place before you're even running it. Okay, so there we go. That's a bit better. You'll need to restart less and less is that all the kind of boilerplate code is in place. So as long as you're not, adding and removing packages and moving files about and all that stuff. Typically, it'll be fine with 1 or 2 changes, but I suspect the reason it's complaining now is because I'm making so many. Okay, what's next? So home, let's make home look a little bit nicer. And we'll just bring in and wire up some of the material UI stuff here. So I'm going to get paper just because it is a nicer way to have identify something. So we'll assume the widget's going to go on a piece of paper, for example. Import the with styles stuff I showed as well from material UI styles. Okay, so styles then go const view styles. And it's going to use something called make styles. It's going to take not a theme object. Okay, and we're going to type theme. And it's going to return an object literal. And in this case, let's do root. And what we're going to do, actually, we're not going to do this. Right now, we're just going to have it return an empty theme, right? So this. I'm actually going to use something different here that I didn't show you in the demo, so we didn't have time. I'm going to use something called the box, like this. And box is just a really versatile component that does all sorts of different things. So let's show you. So there's this thing called system. So Material UI is about to go to 4.0, kind of probably in the next month. And when it does, it's changed a lot of things about how it works. So Material UI prior to version 1 was great, used by tons of people, but it was kind of, it was the project growing. When they released 1.0, the whole kind of structure had kind of matured and evolved. Then 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 were about adding new things, expanding. And then what they're doing with 4.0 is kind of refining and simplifying everything that they've done. And that's where you see like the CSS and JS stuff, the system alpha stuff, all coming into fruition. And actually, you can go and use the version 4.0 right now if you want to. We'll stick with 3.9.2 because it is a stable version. But we want to use a lot of these newer features because they just make our life a lot easier. So here's a box. And the idea with the box is you can, where is, oh yeah, it's right in the sidebar. On the box, you can do things like borders, display, flex box, palette, position, shadow, sizing, spacing. All these things can be applied to a box. And the syntax is really concise, so I quite like it. And then what it means as well is you don't have to have kind of all this stuff inside your styles. You can actually apply it directly to the box. So let's do that. So box is kind of for layout, a bit of color, padding, margin, that kind of stuff. Or if you want flex boxes as well, that's what the box is for. And then more display type stuff you do with other components. So I see this as more of like laying out how things are going to look. And for widget right now, don't really know, but I'm just going to kind of do it as a demo to show you a bit that there's a bit of flexibility here. So where does box come from, right? Box is going to come from core, and it's called unstable box is box, just because the API for box is unstable. That's why. That's what it's called. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, it wants me to take it actually right out of box. Let's got an underscore there, I think. Okay, this will still complain because the reason it's giving me this error is because there is no TypeScript definition for this yet. Material UI is done in TypeScript, but boxes in 4.0 they'll have the typing for it, but because we're going to use 3.9, we'll have to manually add declare the module. So declare module that, and now we're just basically telling TypeScript compiler that it exists. So stop complaining, essentially. Okay, now let's do box stuff. Box. Okay, so let's just add a typography element, typography, and hello, welcome to widget. Okay, hello, welcome to widget. There's a few things we want to do as well. So let's say we want to margin, right? So margin left, right, auto. So we'll put that. You probably can't see it right now. Okay, so right now, because it's a div, it's going to take up the whole width. What we want to do is set the size of it. So what are the properties for size? You go in here, sizing. You can see, so what do we want, right? Let's assume we're going to do a percentage width. You can do height, same for height as well. And let's say we want 33%. Okay. Just because why not? I think you can even say a third in here, I think, as well. Okay, hello, welcome to widget. Why don't we give it a border? 1 pixel solid. All right. And you can start to see how you can kind of add things in a little bit more of a semantic way. Now, you can see that this has come with the HTML root has some defaults applied to it for margin and everything. Otherwise, this would be flush at the top. And that's where we use that CSS baseline feature, right? So I'll put that in here. CSS baseline. Okay, and that should now remove it. So now it's going to be more predictable. Additionally, I would say, why don't we use a box for layout? We'll put this on a piece of paper, because why not? And then we don't need to have that. Okay, now it's on a piece of paper. And let's do margin top. Let's just do 20 pixels for now. Okay, perfect. And then padding inside paper, or even inside box, whatever we want to do. So we can do it slightly different. And padding, we'll just make, let's do 8 pixels. Okay. Now I gotta do the width as well. Sorry, the paper's a div inside a box, so I'm doing it, getting a bit lost here. Okay, that's better. And now in here, I'm gonna do class name. Okay, I'm gonna apply a style from up here, and I'm gonna do CSS dot. So typically what I'll do is my root component I'll call root, and you see lots of other people do this as well. So you have lots of things called root. When it generates it at runtime, it won't be called root. And in this case, I just want padding. And I'm going to use the theme. Spacing.value or unit. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll set that padding unit here in a minute. And I'm going to go const CSS equals use styles. Unit. Okay, so it's complaining now because there's no theme, right? And the reason there's no theme is because I haven't added the theme provider here yet. So let's now add it. We're going to call this theme. Okay, where are we going to get that? We haven't created it yet. So import theme from theme. We'll put it into utils. Where we'll probably end up putting it once I've worked out slightly more about how to do this, we'll probably put it into the rematch store, and then that way we can fetch it asynchronously, and then populate the theme that way. And display a loading indicator while we wait for the theme to be loaded. That's not what I meant to do. Theme.ts, import create MUI theme. UI or okay. So in here, we can do now is you get to override whatever you want. So what we're gonna do in a minute is override some stuff. Export default, no, not export default. Export theme. Let's see if this is gonna work. Okay, so now we have padding, and it's now getting that unit value or the spacing value inside home being passed down from that theme provider. Okay, so what's next? Let's go into theme. There's a couple things we can do in here. Let me go back. So if you go back in here, where's theme? Customization, I think? Default theme. So you can explore everything that create MUI theme comes out by default, right? So you can see if I wanted to change spacing, for example, I could change unit to 16 or whatever it needs to be. Typography, so lots of different options for how you get things to be displayed. But then what you can do is you can redefine it. So if, let's say, one client wanted, you know, Courier is their font, then it's really easy, simple for us to just do that in this theme file. In this instance, you can see it's using Roboto by default. And I haven't actually added Roboto to this project yet. Let's do that right now. And I'm just going to do it inside the index.html is an import. Okay, so let's just not bother trying to remember the code myself. Typography. Come on. Grab it from Google. There we go. Okay. Shouldn't see any different because I have the font installed locally anyway, so it renders for me. But if you didn't have it, then you would need that included. Okay, so lots there. Don't need with styles. What's next? So I've got basic React app set up. Then I did the material UI stuff. So theme provider, the baseline. We'll get to rematch in a few minutes. Creating a theme. So one of the nice changes that we're going to see with 4.0 is a move more towards kind of consistent naming with what you'd expect from CSS and such. So the old kind of typography component would use things like display 4, 3, 2, 1, headline, title, which doesn't really mean anything. Right, everyone who does HTML is used to like H1, H2, H3, H4, so on and so forth. So these are the new variants. And now in order to enable it, I just need to, in my theme, enable the next variants, right? In 4.0, you won't have to do this anymore, but for now, what we want to do is, where's my typography? So I'm going to say variant, and I can go H1, for example. And now this will be an H1, right? So let's do H4. So that looks, welcome to Widget, H6. Okay, great. And just going to gutter bottom. Oops. And then let's just do, if you don't do anything, it's just the normal body text. Widgets everywhere. Okay, gutter bottom is just adding some margin stuff. Now box itself, one of the other changes with box is you get more and more used to it. You can actually do typography with box, right? So you can kind of align text, add font weight, font sizes, and so on and so forth. And even in the strings you give for values, you can actually access the theme. So you could do things like if you wanted, this could be, I think it's spacing.unit. I can do something like that, and it would resolve it at runtime. That's probably not exactly right, but hopefully the idea comes across. Okay, so let's now use let's add another little thing. So let's have a home image, right? So we're going to call it avatar, or not avatar, we'll call it React. I think they're called, what are they called? These guys. Okay, these are just little avatars. Obviously we don't actually need it, but I'm just going to use one anyways. So let's use backpack, why not? put this little image in here. I've added this, but we'll get rid of it later if we don't want it. This is more about a little bit of fun. Backpack. Okay, so it's TypeScript is complaining that it doesn't know this module. I don't think there are any types for learn add types. No, it doesn't exist. That's fine. Okay, there's our backpack. Okay, so let's just kind of in terms of helping or starting to understand this, let's put this backpack into a box. Okay. Going to create two boxes. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put all this. I'm going to do a flex box thing here, right? Box. So display flex box. Now what we can do is, let me show you. Flexbox. Okay, right. So we can do any sort of flexboxy type thing that you'd be able to do. So justify, align items, and in this case, I'm just going to align items in the center, or justify content in the center, right? And hopefully that does it. Why did it not? I probably just need to do the center here. Yeah. I can't remember what the property is. Text align. Wow, imagine that, eh? Text align. In material 4, you'll get all the autocomplete, and it'll let you know whether or not set as a valid value. Okay. Yeah. Hello, welcome to Widget. Widgets everywhere. And let's just add put a gutter on this one. Bottom. Okay. Move that down a little bit. And why don't we make something here clickable, and then we'll use that to wire in the rematch store. Okay. Let me just get add initial boilerplate TypeScript React app with material UI. Okay. Oh, I haven't done config either, so let's add config right now too. Nope, don't need a folder. Need file. Okay, so we typically do config, like I briefly showed. So when this is running, if I go to the console, what you'll have on window is a high-level React app. What do we have? A couple different React globals, right? But what I can't do is something like process.env, right? That's not going to exist. So in terms of when this is running in development, it's very different than how it's running in production. Because when it's running in production, it's built into static HTML in CSS. But when it's running in development, then you can do things like pass in environment variables. So I think you can actually go process dot is it React app? Hold on. I don't use it very often. React process React app variables. Where are they? Yeah, so like React underscore app is kind of the global variable you can use. The problem is then you have to, so typically when you want to read things in the process environment is when it's sensitive, right? So if it's not sensitive, then having this big long line of environment variables appended to the line when you do the build becomes a bit clunky. So I like to just do it in a config file because I find it then easier to update those variables. Now we can do it the other way as well. It's completely legit to do it that way too. I just find this easier, for now anyways. So let's do const env dot node env. Okay. So I make this Where are we? Sorry, one sec. Let's make sure I get this right. cd dev. That's right. Yeah, okay. Okay, a couple things. So firstly, I'm going to bring in the package.json file. Up one. And the reason I want package.json is I actually want to get the version out of it. So we're going to have this version, which we'll use to kind of increase the version of the app. So when we do a run, we can actually say, version 1.1, and then also give the commit information. Okay, so for the environment, what we actually want to do is that or this, right? So if it's set, take it, otherwise use development. And then what else we got? We got commit and branch. So do the same thing here again. Commit, call it commit SHA. These might come from the build pipeline. So for now, I'll just kind of go with what I have here. Ref name, isn't it? I think these are just GitLab things. CI. And then if I don't have them, let's call it unknown. If I can spell. Known. Okay, so const. So you can, what I'll typically do is do shared config entries. So let's, for example, imagine we have a disclaimer. I'll give a URL for the disclaimer here. Let's also put in things like version. That's not what I wanted. And where we're going to get version from is const version. We're going to take that off a package json.version. Okay. What else we got? Branch. Commit. Anything else I need to share? That's it, ENV as well. Okay, so these are going to be attributes that are common to every config. Now I'm going to go const configs. Let's just set up the development one first. Okay, I'm going to unpack shared. And then if I do it after, I can overwrite anything that came before if I needed to. Excuse me. So for example, I could redefine env here and call it blah. And what would happen now, if this was originally development when it was read in, it would now be blah. Obviously that doesn't really serve any purpose at the moment. Test. Okay, and then we'll do a staging one as well. And we may find that we don't actually need all these different okay, now the last step is going to be const runtime config. Okay, so that's going to be equal to configs. We're going to use the env key, and then we're going to export runtime config as config. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. This is complaining. Oh yes, tsconfig resolve JSON module. That is true. Why is it complaining? Okay, don't know why that was doing it. What is this? Yes, we need to cast this. Okay, so what I typically do is in my environment variable here, I'll define any interfaces that I want to be kind of application wide, and in this instance, I want interface iConfig to be application wide, right? So if I look back to here, for example, these are all going to be on the config object. So let's just define these as a type. Okay, now inside config, I can go as iConfig. Okay, I think that does it. Why is it not? So you want me to say this is any? Okay, sure. Obviously, you want to try to avoid using any. In this instance, I think we're okay. There's probably a better way to do it, but let's ignore that for now. Okay, so where were we? This should still run. Okay, so something I like to do, especially in development with these things, is print out the config file when we run. So I'm going to import it here. Okay, and then I'm going to do, and what we'll do later with console logs is we'll actually replace it with a different logging library as well, so we can pipe logs somewhere else, for example, like to a central logging server for errors. Okay, so now I've got kind of my config script getting printed out here, so I can, just be confident that I'm running in the environment that I think I'm running in. And there's really not much in there right now, but it'll grow. Okay, so that is a lot of the boilerplate for setting this up. Let's now just commit this, git add, oh, that's not how you commit, git commit, added config. Okay. Next thing we want to start doing is enforcing pre-commit hooks, so that you can't put in code that isn't kind of formatted into the standard into the repo and trip everyone's OCD. So I haven't used Husky before, but if you're not familiar with pre-commit hooks, if you go into the hidden Git folder, you'll have a hooks folder. And these are scripts that will be executed automatically by Git when you do different things. So for example, pre-commit. Now, if you wanted this in the real world, you'd get rid of the .sample extension, and you just have pre-commit in here. If I cat pre-commit, okay, you can see here's a kind of a bash script that gets run. So I could certainly put it in here. The problem with this is that what's inside Git doesn't get committed to the repo. So actually what you want to do is use Husky, which will allow you to put the pre-commit hooks into package.json, and then it's shared amongst your team. Okay, so like I said, I haven't used Husky before. I've only ever used the Git stuff, so well, it looks pretty straightforward, right? So let's try it. So yarn add Husky, and I'm going to put it in dev again because we don't really care if I can spell Husky. Don't really care about it in production. Just care about it before we get to production. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's open up package.json. So Husky, the reason I'm getting all these latest stuff here is I have an extension that shows me the latest version against the NPM repository. So it just lets you know what's out of date, but let's just disable that for now because it is a bit verbose. Okay, so Husky, and I right now just want the pre-commit hook. Okay. And what I want in the pre-commit hook is yarn pre-commit. So this is what I want it to run when I do pre-commit. So in scripts, I'm going to now define a pre-commit script. So let's call this pre-commit. And what do I want it to do? I want it to do tslint. So tslint is going to kind of go through, match it against any of these rules, and anything that's wrong or off, it's going to, what it can fix, it can fix. And otherwise it'll error out. If it errors out, then your commit will fail. So let's just take a look. So tslint. So one, I haven't installed it yet actually, so that would be useful. So yarn add dev tslint. Okay, great. Now, if you're using VS Code, you'll have lint output coming here. So let's open up a file and have it complain at me. Anything wrong in here? No, how about home? Anything it doesn't like in here yet? Okay, so import sources must be alphabetical-wise, right? So it doesn't like the order that these are declared in. So I can organize imports. Now we'll like them. What else? A node word. So this is a spell checker, so not actually the tslint. And the way you can tell is by the icon, right? An empty interface is equivalent to open close, which it doesn't like. And because I'm not actually using any props right now, what it's telling me to do is this. It's saying no empty interfaces, okay? And so now that tslint is fine. I fixed it manually. Doing it with the pre-commit hook, I'll show you what's going to happen there. Okay, so if I go to terminal, so I've installed tslint. I have not installed tslint globally, right? So I can't just execute it from the command line. I have to use mpx. mpx will execute executables that are within the local node modules folder. So obviously there's a global and a local install for yarn or for npm. And tslint is installed locally. I like to do it locally just because then you don't have different versions doing different things. But I mean, there's a good reason for doing it globally as well if you use it regularly. Anyway, so tslint. Okay, so here's tslint. I can run it like this, and no project file specified, right? So I can do, I think it's, let me just get the help out again. So there's a tac p, so I can give it a path to the tsconfig JSON file, or the directory containing it, and that will go into here, read in all of this, and see it has an include source, and so what tslint will then do is lint the source directory, okay, which is what I want. I could have also just specified the source directory, which is where, somewhere here. Exclude config. Anyways, you can specify the directory itself, or what you can do, in addition, what you can do is you can give it the fix. Where's fix? Come on, fix. There's fix, and fix will fix what it can, right? It can't fix everything, but it can fix lots of little things. Okay, so tslint. So then what I want is p. And give it the current directory. It'll load in the tsconfig.json file, and now it's gone through and it's linted my code, and it realizes all the bits that are wrong, right? So this would error out as a pre-commit hook, and I'd have to fix it. So let's try that, right? So first let's add it as a pre-commit hook. My pre-commit hook is going to be called yarn pre-commit. So now let's make that yarn script. So I'm going to go, what am I going to do? I might just be able to go tslint directly in here, actually. Yeah, I can. Okay, so let's try this. No, that was a mistake. Okay, I got two versions of Husky now. I don't need that. Okay, so first thing, I should now be able to go to yarn pre-commit. Okay, that ran, and it should fail out here. Okay, so exit with status code. If it exits with a code of 0, then it would have passed and that'd be fine. Obviously it's 2, so I have stuff I have to fix, so I can't put messy code into the repo. Okay, so what's the next step here? Next step is now getting it to actually fix the problems. So, excuse me. The way you can do that is with that tac fix. And actually, I prefer to spell out my switches in full, just because if you're not sure what it is, obviously the P can mean lots of things, and projects is much more concise. Okay. No, sorry. Okay, so let's just double check that. Yeah, so project, I can spell it out full there. Okay, so let's do yarn pre-commit. See if it can fix anything. I wouldn't rely on tslint to fix errors, right? So in this instance, there's a bunch of things it can't actually fix. So the import sources, it can't fix. Let's start with that. And what file is that in, right? You can see it's in app.tsx. So in here, what it doesn't like is the order that these have shown up in. Okay, and so it wants them to be alphabeticalized. So basically, from the import name, right? So if it's like an app, that'll go first. If it's a non-local file, then that goes next, and then local files alphabeticalized after that. That's the order it wants. So let's run that again. Unknown option projects. What the hell, man? tslint fix projects. Or is it project? Oh, just project. Okay, so we've got fewer errors now. So home, so it doesn't like the empty interface. So I have a couple options here. I can I might use this later, so let's just go ts ignore, and then that should ignore this problem. Is it going to ignore? Let's find out. No, it didn't ignore. Okay. Well, let's get rid of it for now then. Now, you can completely not even declare it, and that accomplishes the same thing. So I should now get rid of that. Okay, so now keys in objects, it wants to be sorted alphabetically. Okay, so let's go into my config and A, B, C, D, right? This is what it's complaining about. So that is key staging, so QRST. Okay, commit. Let's commit. Clearly don't know the alphabet. And the last one is going to be service worker, right? So service worker interface. So service worker is provided to us, but if you want more advanced stuff, you can actually do it yourself. Now, basically, we just need to do that. And then what we're going to do everywhere else in this file, where config is used again, and put an I in front of it. Okay, so let's try this again. Great. So now that passes. Okay, so if I were to now commit, what should happen is it should be running that tslint fix, and it should fail if there's anything wrong, and it should pass and commit if there's everything's right. So let's do get add, get commit, added pre-commit hook, so that tslint is run before permitting the commit. Okay, great. So now we're not going to have as messy of a set of code. We can enforce it, and what it means now is we can start to enforce kind of conventions or standards, which will just lead to a more maintainable and more robust code base. Okay, I'm going to stop this one here before we get into the Redux stuff, rematch/Redux.